Thank you, G-Defy, for being a sponsor of Newsmax podcast. G-Defy shoes are the best choice for walking, running, and standing. If you spend a lot of time on your feet, these are the shoes for you. G-Defy's patented Verso shock technology aligns your posture and perfects your gait. Go to gdefy.com and use the code MAX for $30 off on orders of $130 or more.
Hello, happy Monday, and welcome to your Newsmax Daily for July 8th, 2024, the 190th day of the year, the 28th Monday, and the second of 5 Mondays this month. It is not a happy Monday for millions of Americans getting back to work today after the long holiday break. Some people maybe still extending that break, but I hope yours was fantastic. If you were completely out of the loop for the weekend, and honestly, I hope you were disconnected, I encourage you to catch up on the July 4th and July 5th editions of the Newsmax Daily. Some really great stuff. It is also not a happy Monday for the millions of Americans in Texas, some of whom are dedicated listeners to the podcast, being impacted, and those that will be impacted by Hurricane Beryl, which made landfall near Matagorda Bay. It's pretty much between Galveston and Corpus Christi around 3:50 a.m. local time this morning as a Category 1 storm, sustained winds of about 83 miles per hour.
We have issued a voluntary evacuation of the west end of Galveston Island.
That's Galveston Mayor Craig Brown. Beryl now expected to move northeast through the state as a tropical storm for the next couple of days, possibly even up into Arkansas. It is not a happy Monday either for President Biden and his staff returning from the holiday weekend with the lowest approval rating of his and most any other U.S. presidency at 36%. 57% of Americans disapproving of the president, according to a survey released from 538. This is Newsmax weekend host Tom Basile.
We're watching the end of Joe Biden. It's going to happen, all right? None of the stuff that we have seen over the last week happens organically. When New York Magazine, the New York Times, all of these folks suddenly decide to do a gigantic pile-on on this president, that is the apparatus of the far left in this country telling Joe it's time to go. And so when we see it, I'm not quite sure, but just know when it happens, they're going to want you to that they've tried to pull the wool over your eyes about his mental state and his physical condition for the last 4 years. They're going to want you to forget about the laptop and the diary and the pay to play and the money from China, and they're going to then recast him as a new Cincinnatus. Somebody who is willing to let go of the reins of power. He will be framed as a hero, and then they will pivot to Kamala Harris. I think that's what you're seeing. I think that's what's going to happen, and I think it's all been part of a strategy. They were waiting for their opportunity to lower the boom, and last Thursday he gave them the opportunity.
Tom Basile, host of America Right Now, Saturday mornings on Newsmax, served multiple roles in the George W. Bush administration and is the former executive director of the New York Republican Party. He also says that when, not if, but when Joe is replaced, it will be by the vice president.
Look, I think it'd be incredibly risky for them to pass her over, and look, they're going to enlist Hollywood. They're going to enlist all of their spinmeisters to try to take somebody who even privately they will tell you has not impressed anyone, who has dramatically underperformed, and try and turn them into a standard bearer. And again, they're going to go back to this DEI stuff. They're going to go back to skin color. They're going to go back to gender. They're going to go back to immutable characteristics. And that's the way that they feel like they're going to try to win this election. Donald Trump just needs to continue to focus on policy.
Again, that's Tom Basile, host of America Right Now, Saturday mornings, 9 o'clock Eastern on Newsmax. So if you think President Biden was in denial in Friday night's ABC interview, and that was the word used by every single network that night, denial, listen to the president at a campaign rally in Pennsylvania on Sunday.
We're drawing crowds that have been really big crowds ever since the debate, not joking. Even that night in the debate, we had great crowds afterwards. And so things are moving.
Holy smokes, right? I mean, have you ever seen a big crowd at a Biden event ever? Yeah, things are moving completely in the wrong direction. He also talked about how much money the campaign has raised, which is mostly factual. I said it last week. Who in their right mind is going to donate to his campaign at this point? I understand a lot of these people need a big tax write-off, but there's a lot of other things you can send the money to. I mentioned this in Friday's Newsmax Daily, but the Disney heiress, a Democrat mega donor, said her and other mega donors are not going to send any more money until Joe resigns. Meanwhile, the guy who is usually boasting about the crowds at his events didn't have any events over the weekend. Aside from a couple of radio interviews and social media posts, former President Donald Trump was uncharacteristically quiet over the holiday weekend, allowing for the Democrat implosion to dominate the news. This is the Trump campaign senior advisor Jason Miller on Newsmax.
We saw the speech earlier today. Those clips are bad, and now these additional clips from ABC are even worse. Mark, I don't understand what Joe Biden's team is doing. Clearly, his weakness is speaking. Okay, that seems to be an important thing if you're going to be president of the United States. So his team thinks that they can solve it by having him do more speaking. I don't get this at all. The one thing where I do get concerned, Mark, is for all this talk about Joe's incompetence, we're really losing sight of the plot that on day by day, we're having thousands and thousands of illegals pour across our border. People are suffering. The unemployment rate is going up. As we saw numbers today, people are dying in Ukraine and being attacked by terrorists via Hamas in Israel. And this whole world's gone to hell ever since Joe Biden took over.
You know, one of the things, it seems like the Democrats are finally starting to catch up with this idea. We see Democrat Senator Mark Warner from Virginia is reportedly working to assemble a group of other Democrat senators to ask Biden to leave the race. Anonymous sources actually telling the Washington Post the Virginia senator has told others that he is deeply concerned Biden is not able to run a campaign that could beat the former president. But really, I mean, shouldn't he then not even be the president?
Yeah, you make a great point. And by the way, Mark Warner, chairman of the Senate Intel Committee. Okay, if you're the chairman of the Intel Committee and you cannot tell that Joe Biden is cognitively impaired 3.5 years into his presidency, you shouldn't be in that spot. I just got to be on the level with you. But you're exactly right. If Joe Biden is too incompetent to run for re-election, that means he's too incompetent to be president of the United States now. Now, of course, Mark, you've been out there saying this. I've been saying it. Newsmax has been saying it. The entire world has seen what's going on with Joe Biden. But for all these Democrats, whether it be Mark Warner or even in the mainstream media, if I kind of repeat myself, they were all complicit in the cover-up.
Senior advisor to the Trump campaign, Jason Miller on Newsmax. Donald Trump's little quiet period will come to an end, though, tomorrow when the former president hosts a rally at his beautiful golf club in Doral, Florida. I talked about this a bit back on Friday's Daily, but speculation is growing that Trump is going to announce his running mate at tomorrow night's rally, and that person is going to be Florida Senator Marco Rubio. There is still a lot of buzz, though, around Ohio Senator J.D. Vance, who I really, really like. And I've also mentioned that Trump really specializes in throwing curveballs, right? So it could still be South Carolina Senator Tim Scott or anyone else that was initially on the list, I guess. In the next segment, Newsmax host Lidia was recapping President Biden's interview on ABC when she made a really, really important point for Trump supporters and the Trump campaign.
4 times during that interview, Stephanopoulos asked Biden about taking a cognitive test. And all Joe did was deflect, and then he started to pivot, and then he continued to spread lies about President Trump over and over again.
Trump is a pathological liar. Trump is, he is. Have you ever seen anything Trump did that benefited somebody else, not him?
Well, how about every single policy Trump ever did for this country? But listen, it's clear Dems are desperate. It's clear the real people running the White House are the two you see right there in the middle there, an admitted drug addict and Joe's first babysitter, I mean Jill Biden. And you're thinking, okay, no way Joe can win now. But I'm here to tell you, never, ever underestimate the level of Trump derangement syndrome out there, especially when it comes to members of the fake news, like Joyless Reed of MSDNC.
Just let me know when you guys are finished figuring it out, Democrats, because I know y'all the freak out people. Go ahead and freak out, have your conversation, and then let me know who I got to vote for to keep Hitler out the White House. That's it. I'm done. Oh, and by the way, if it's Biden in a coma, I'm going to vote for Biden in a coma. I don't even really particularly like the guy. A lot of his policies, don't like him. He's not Donald Trump, right? Yeah, Hitler, White House. We keeping him out.
Wow. Joyless, I think she just said the quiet part out loud. And I'm serious. There are a lot of people out there who feel exactly the way she does. And I'm not even going to address her Hitler comments because it's too ludicrous. But she just said she'd vote for a guy who's in a coma, basically a corpse.
Lydia is exactly right. As difficult as it may be for you to believe, as preposterous as it sounds, especially coming from a member of the once highly respected NBC News team, there are millions of Joy Reids out there. And I'm telling you, like she did, do not underestimate Trump derangement syndrome. I was so happy to hear Lydia bring this up because I experienced this myself over the holiday weekend and was going to talk about it anyway. I was at a party with some liberals who had no idea who I was or what I do, and it was frightening. And this is not hyperbole. I'm not exaggerating. It was as frightening as what you just heard from Joy Reid. By the way, that's a lot more frightening if you see it. But some of these people at, the gathering I was at were people of color. Some people were white. I think there was a Hispanic guy there. One woman told me she hopes Gavin Newsom replaces Biden. She thinks he's great, and she wouldn't agree with me that he did anything wrong in California and that California is fine and it's a great state and Gavin Newsom would be the guy to replace Biden. Another woman, a black woman, said she liked the vice president, but she wasn't confident that she could win and thinks they should replace Biden with Gretchen Whitmer. This was the absolutely best one. The same woman, probably in her early 60s, educated, middle class, when I and some other people that were there brought up the border, she said it was all right-wing conspiracy propaganda, and there are not millions of illegals coming into the country. They won't acknowledge the border. Inflation doesn't exist, and if it does, it's because of the policies that Trump had before Biden got there. Price of gas, nothing. It's truly scary. They did all agree, though, at least, that Joe has lost it and needs to be replaced. But do not underestimate Trump derangement syndrome. Let's go back to Lydia, who spoke with Arizona Senate candidate Kari Lake.
We're joined now by Republican Senate candidate in Arizona, Kari Lake. Kari, my goodness, this was not the Hail Mary that Joe Biden's team need.
Is it Saturday night? I felt like I just watched an SNL skit. I mean, that was outrageous. This guy is so out of control, and he had the fake news, the biggest fake news propagandist in the world interviewing him, asking him over and over again. And, I'm just shocked that he doesn't see what's really happening. But it's apparent that the fake news media wants him out. And it's apparent that Joe Biden is still completely as clueless as we've all known since the beginning, since he ran in 2020 and was drawing 8 or 10 people to events. Listen, I just wrapped up an event about an hour ago, and I have more people that are still here, wonderful people who are still here. And more people are still here an hour after one of my events than Joe Biden could even get in his events. He actually thinks that he has bigger events than our president, President Trump. This is crazy. And the best line of the night was that he's the one who created NATO. NATO was created, I think it was back in 1949. Joe Biden was, 6 years old, just probably freshly out of diapers. How ironic, because he's back in diapers again.
Oh, ouch. Kari, let's listen to that soundbite.
What's your plan to turn the campaign around?
You saw it today. How many people can you draw crowds like I drew today? You find many more enthusiastic than today? Huh?
I mean, I don't think you want to play the crowd game. Donald Trump can draw big crowds. There's no question about that.
How you can draw a big crowd, but what does he say? Who does he have? I'm the guy supposedly in trouble. We raised $38 million within 4 days after this. We have over 1 million individual contributors. Less than $200. I've not seen what you're proposing.
What a mess. It's like it's almost, Kari, like he's a critically wounded racehorse that needs to be put out of his misery at this point. Why are they running this guy into the ground? Is this obsession with power overriding their common sensibilities that the campaign is in dire straits at this point? What do you think it is?
Well, I don't think it's his obsession with power. I think it's his fear over being caught for all of the many years of malfeasance and corruption that he has been part and parcel to. And they know that when President Trump gets into office, we're going to make sure that we don't have corrupt individuals in the government anymore. You know, the Biden family has taken millions of dollars from our adversaries. That line, who does he have? Basically, he's saying, who are these people at President Trump's rallies? I'll tell you who they are. They're hardworking Americans. They're retirees who did everything right, paid into taxes, and now they're watching as Joe Biden for the past 2 years has cut Medicaid and Medicare. And they're watching as Joe Biden is ready to cut Social Security. And they're watching as Joe Biden has pushed inflation to where these retirees can't even afford to live, even though they saved with a nest egg to get into their golden years. The people who President Trump has are hardworking Americans, young people, people of all colors, all backgrounds, middle class, working class, upper class. President Trump has we, the people. Joe Biden has the globalists and a bunch of corrupt individuals in Washington, D.C., and he knows he's in trouble if he loses this. And guess what, Joe? You're going to lose this, whether you get pushed out now or you lose this on November 5th on Election Day when we take back our country.
That is Arizona Republican Senate candidate Kari Lake, who is obviously in the middle of her own very busy campaign. President Biden has no scheduled events on his calendar for this Monday after making a couple of stops in Pennsylvania yesterday. Before the George Stephanopoulos interview back on Friday, you remember President Biden did a radio interview. Was all over the place, right? Well, it was on WURD radio in Philadelphia, but I mean, cuts and talk of the radio interview were all over the place because it was his first interview after the debate and prior to the Stephanopoulos interview. Well, the reporter or the host that interviewed Biden on WURD radio was fired over the weekend after admitting in an interview with CNN Saturday that the Biden administration sent her a list of predetermined questions in advance of the interview. Oops. Thanks, Joe. Donald Trump has the big rally near Miami tomorrow night that I mentioned, then another one on Saturday in Pennsylvania. That is a lot closer to J.D. Vance's home in Ohio, if he is going to be the guy. Maybe Rubio tomorrow, maybe J.D. Vance on Saturday. Whatever happened to Trump's running mate going to be a woman? You remember that? Way back when. Trump was going to pick a woman. Again, a Trump curveball could be coming. We will definitely know sooner rather than later because the Republican National Convention kicks off on the 15th, 1 week from today. And the president has been adamant now that he would announce his running mate prior to the RNC. First, he said it would be at the RNC. Now he says it'll be before the RNC. So, again, could be tomorrow night, could be at Saturday's rally, and it could be anybody. Keep up with all of the news on Newsmax, Newsmax.com, and you can watch from anywhere on the Newsmax app. It is available in the App Store or Google Play. Make sure you have the Newsmax app, and make sure you're watching Newsmax on Newsmax Plus for the most complete lineup of all your favorite shows and guests. Go to NewsmaxPlus.com, get signed up, get Rob Schmitt Tonight, Greg Kelly Reports, Greta Van Susteren, Carl Higbee on Frontline, National Report, John Bachman, and more with analysis from people like Governor Mike Huckabee, like Kari Lake, Judge Napolitano, former Acting Attorney General Matthew Whitaker, Mark Halpern, and many, many others. NewsmaxPlus.com. I'm Tony Marino. Thank you, as always, for listening to the Newsmax Daily Podcast. Please subscribe on whatever platform you may be listening. Enjoy the rest of your day. I hope it's a good week, and keep on fighting the good fight.
News breaks every minute, every day. You need the app, the Newsmax app. Find it free on your smartphone store. Then watch us anytime, anywhere.
It's our America. We conquered it. We built it. Great values like honesty and fairness. Great courage. A great nation needs a free press. Newsmax is it. 30 million Americans regularly go to Newsmax when they really need to know. They watch Newsmax TV at home on the free Newsmax app. They go to Newsmax.com. Start today. Newsmax is real news for real people.